We are going to be beginning Chapter 6 here today on this lovely video. And we're getting close to the end, which I'm glad because I want to move on to next stories because the story's starting to bore me now. And it's kind of the same thing over and over, but we'll see what happens and how it turns out. That was too close, Twilight gasped after each of them got into the treehouse and shut the door. All 6 ponies, plus 1 dragon, were now cooped up inside the Crusaders' tiny treehouse off at the edge of the Apple family farm. What was too close? Apple Bloom asked, looking up at Twilight. Oh, nothing, girls. It's just, Twilight? Fluttershy spoke softly. Maybe we should, talk about this outside. I mean, so it's a bit more private, if that's okay with you. Right. We'll be right back, girls. We gotta discuss arrangements for a group sleepover. This light sprung happiness into the eyes of all 3 Crusaders, each of them now looking as if they were about to start bouncing off the walls. Come on, Pinky. Let's talk about how we should arrange a sleepover, which will be a surprise. As the 3 left, Twilight made sure to telekinetically lift Spike, who was still asleep, up and slowly and softly onto the table before closing the door behind them. After walking about 15 paces away from the little home, Twilight was the first to speak up. Oh, horse apples. This isn't good. I feel so bad for Applejack and Big Macintosh. I hope they'll be all right, Fluttershy said softly. Twilight, we should try to go back to Rarity's place and make sure she's all right, Pinkie Pie said, her words catching Fluttershy's attention. Rarity's? Fluttershy asked. Did something happen to her? Did Molestia get her? Unfortunately, Fluttershy, yes, she did, Twilight said with her head now bowed. When we were at her house, she stayed behind so that me, AJ, and Big Mac could escape. That's when we found Pinkie Pie and told her what happened. And then I got Spike, and we all gathered at your place. Oh no, we have to go save her. Please, Twilight, we can't leave Rarity behind like this. What if she's hurt? But it's too dangerous. Celestia could be out there looking around Ponyville right now. If any of us tries to get all the way across town to Rarity's home, she'll surely see us. Oh, please, Twilight, at least let me go. I just have to see if she's all right. Twilight looked at Fluttershy, her eyes meeting those of sorrow and fear, yet with an added hope of determination. She then turned to look at Pinkie Pie, who simply gave a soft nod. All right, Twilight finally said after a gentle sigh. But please, be careful, Fluttershy. We don't know what Celestia could do to you. I do, Pinkie remarked softly as a small tear formed up at the corner of each eye. A second later, she was tightly hugged by Fluttershy, who afterwards went over and hugged Twilight closely. Don't worry, Twilight. Don't worry, Pinkie Pie. I'll be fine. Please, look over the Crusaders while I'm gone, and I'll promise I'll be back soon. Just please, Fluttershy, be careful. Fluttershy's only response was a few gentle nods before she flared her wings out and began to fly straight towards Ponyville. As she flew off, Twilight and Pinkie both exchanged looks again, both equally unsure of what to do next. But before either of them could say a word, a green fire erupted out of the window of the treehouse, as well as a loud burp. Halt! Who goes there? Silver Shield asked in his most stern voice as the rainbow-maned Pegasus approached the flying carriage. Rainbow Dash, who could now see not only the royal guards but also Luna, let out a sigh of relief. Oh, am I glad to see you guys, she said, flying before the guard Pegasi, pulling the carriage as they came to a stop. You gotta help us! Twilight and my other friends are in trouble! You mean Twilight Sparkle? Luna asked, standing up from her seat. Yeah, Princess Celestia has gone, crazy or something. She's doing all sorts of horrible, bad, just uncool stuff to other ponies in Ponyville. We are already well aware of this, Luna replied. We are currently on our way to Ponyville now to try and capture Celestia and get her back to normal. Well, can you try to, rescue my friends first? I think Celestia's trying to hunt down Twilight and the others. Yes, it sounds like the right thing to do first. Huh. Why waste our time trying to rescue a bunch of losers? Remarked a voice inside the carriage. Looking in from another angle, Rainbow Dash could now see Trixie sitting beside where Luna was. Trixie? What the hey are you doing here? Well, if you must know, Princess Luna has requested the aid of the great and powerful Trixie in order to get Celestia back to normal. Whatever, Rainbow Dash grumbled, gritting her teeth slightly. Just please hurry up and save my friends. Ma'am, if I were to make a suggestion, Silver Shield said as he leaned towards Luna, if Celestia is hunting Twilight Sparkle, then if we find her, we can not only rescue the mayor, but also likely find Princess Celestia as well. Finding Twilight Sparkle won't be hard at all, Luna said. In fact, I know just how to find her right now. You do? Trixie and Rainbow Dash both asked collectively. Luna nodded slightly, and then levitated a small piece of paper from a small pocket area in the side of the carriage. With another glow of her horn, the paper began to shine dimly for a few seconds before the shining dissipated. The glow on Luna's horn shifted again, and then the piece of paper quickly disappeared in a small poof of magic. There. All done, Luna stated, smiling proudly. So what'd you do? Rainbow Dash asked, puzzled. It's simple. I just attached a locator spell under that piece of paper you saw a moment ago, and sent it off to Twilight the same way Celestia does. Now, just wait a few seconds and... aha! Luna then raised up a hoof and pointed it out in a seemingly random direction towards Ponyville. The paper is over there, meaning Twilight Sparkle is also probably there as well. My, what a clever trick, dear Luna, Trixie remarked. The great and powerful Trixie will need to learn a few things from you once this whole adventure of ours is finished. Right. So, Rainbow Dash spoke out, ignoring Trixie. Let's get going then. Agreed. I will lead the way from here on out. With that, Luna got out of the carriage and quickly began to fly towards a specific location in the Ponyville area, with Rainbow Dash, the guard Pegasi, and the carriage's two occupants flying right behind her. Punts. Taking flight over Ponyville, Princess Celestia once more continued her search for her elusive prey. She had to be getting close now, having run into four of her 5 friends, meaning that Twilight and her friends were running out of places to hide. However, it also appeared that it may become even harder to reach Twilight with each of her friends she finds. Even worse, it appears that Twilight is now fully aware of the situation, meaning she won't just be found simply by looking around for her. No. What she needs is something to draw Twilight out, something that uses as bait for the young mare. As Celestia's mind wandered in search for the perfect bait to use, a dark object in the distance caught her eye. It was moving. No. More like flying. Just over the tops of a few houses. Squinting her eyes, Celestia could clearly see the shape of a Pegasus pony hurriedly making its way across the town. Was it Rainbow Dash? No, Celestia thought. It's traveling far too slow for it to be that of a speedy Pegasus. However, it could be the other Pegasus friend of Twilight's, and may even know her whereabouts. With that thought fully processed and her mind made up, Celestia quickly bolted towards the Pegasus flying through the dark sky over Ponyville, catching up to it in only a few seconds. Celestia wrapped her hooves quickly around the mare as it let out a terrified squeal, much like a scared little animal. She turned the pony around to face her and quickly lit her horn to provide light, revealing a face stricken with fear and dread. Princess Celestia, Fluttershy squeaked out, now shivering in the sun goddess's arms. Ah... Fluttershy, what a soft coat you have, Celestia whispered, her hooves now gently riding up and down Fluttershy's back. I think I may just have a use for you in more ways than one. Princess Celestia had every intention to interrogate the soft-natured pony and then use her like she did the others. But as her paralyzing stare struck down into Fluttershy, she was taken aback when another stare struck straight back at her. The stare. Fluttershy has no real control over her famous stare, but it always seems to come out just when she needed it. Now, its controlling gaze was locked with that of Princess Celestia's. The princess's powerful gaze is meant to freeze up other ponies, to lock them in place and make them more submissive to her every whim. And it did just that. Only with Fluttershy's powerful stare frozen in place, staring right back at her, Fluttershy's stare keeps the target animal or pony's gaze locked with hers, not allowing an escape from her opposer, as long as the stare continues eye contact. But, with both gazes frozen in place and focused on each other and their abilities working to their full potential, a very powerful feeling rattles through their bodies. The effect is like a constantly strengthening echo. Imagine a headset with a microphone, and a small sound comes out of the speakers on the ears. That sound travels over to the microphone nearby, which picks it up and amplifies it. The same, yet louder sound then continues out of the speaker and gets picked up by the microphone. Over and over, the sound ricochets back and forth, amplifying itself between the two forces, just as the effects of Celestia and Fluttershy's stares are having on each other. Barely 30 seconds pass, and already both ponies are near mental breakdown when Celestia unexpectedly loses focus and manages to break her head away from the locked gazes. Gasping loudly, while her stare was meant to hold and pacify its target, Fluttershy seems to pierce into the target's brain, into their souls even, laying out every feeling and every memory they ever had. From this effect, Celestia had seemed to regain control of herself, her eyes darting side to side, as if she didn't know where she was. Another moment later, and the memories of the night all came flooding back to her, and she realized the full extent of the situation she was in. "Oh no," Celestia whispered to herself softly before turning back to the Pegasus still in her arms, shaking wildly like a terrified animal. She swallowed hard, realizing that these moments of mental recuperation were only temporary, and it would not be long before her other self regained control. "Fluttershy, my faithful subject," Celestia spoke, her voice soft and concerned. "Please, hear me out. I don't have much time." Fluttershy raised her head up to meet the princess's eyes, her look no longer a controlling one, but now a regretful and honest one. "I am not myself tonight. There is another part of me taking hold, released from the most inner depths of my consciousness somehow. Whatever I have done, or what I will do, I do not mean to happen, I promise. Find Twilight, find her before I do, and keep her away from me. I fear if I ever get her in my grasp while in this state, I may never be able to stop." "Celestia, are you sick? Is there something wrong with you?" "No, my child. I am physically well, just mentally distorted. Only magic and a little friendship can help me now." Celestia's eyes twitched just then, her legs now beginning to tremble. I do not have much time. It's coming back. Whatever happens here, please. I'm so sorry for it. I just can't help. Ah!" Celestia reared her head back, closing her eyes tightly as a single tear began to drip gently down the side of her cheek. "Princess! Oh my goodness, please, I'm so sorry. Is there anything else I can do to help you? I mean, if it's not too much." "Yes, there is," Celestia replied, her voice now strangely calm as her head lowered down, eyes still shut. "Look down. There is something I need for you to see." "Well, what is it?" Fluttershy asked curiously, taking a look down below. There were a few houses on the street below, everything dark and resembling a simple sleepy Ponyville town. "What am I looking for? I don't Great sound effects. In the next moment, Fluttershy's body was forcefully pulled against Celestia's head. Celestia's, her head pressed firmly against the larger mare's neck while their bodies locked together. It was a trick. Celestia only needed Fluttershy to break eye contact so that she could no longer use the stare. Celestia's right hoof was pressed against the back of Fluttershy's head, keeping it in place to avoid another dose of her powerful stare. Her left hoof was now down just above Fluttershy's rump, pushing her lower body tightly against hers. Her wings no longer held them in flight. Celestia's horn holding them both levitated in the air, while her wings folded around Fluttershy into a tight embrace. Now the princess's lower body is what it says, began to push itself against Fluttershy's, continually pressing together more and more. "No! Princess, please, you have to..." Fluttershy's cries were quickly stopped as a large glob of Celestia's magical tentacle-like hair stuffed itself into her mouth and began to pulse the rhythm with the bodies. Blah, blah, blah. Small muffled noises, getting choked on the hair down the throat. Tears began to form in her eyes, but before a single drop could fall, she suddenly became bombarded by an intense feeling that coursed through her body. It sourced from every part of her body that was now in contact with Celestia's, and mainly from her mouth and her throat, where her magical hair was pushing and pumping inside of her. In only a matter of moments, Fluttershy became overtaken by the intense sensation, unable to move as she lay nearly limp against the princess. Her wings had stopped flapping. Her eyes were half closed, her legs were dangling in midair, and the only actions that came from her were the moans were muffled through her throat as she quickly lost herself in this sort of forced ecstasy. "It should be just about there," Luna said, pointing her hoof at a 45-degree angle downwards. Peering through the darkness and the few trees in the area, she could barely make out what seemed to be some sort of treehouse. "That's the Cutie Mark Crusader's place," Rainbow Dash said. "I'll go check it out." Before another moment, she quickly sped down towards the little wooden house. "Let's land here," Luna said back to the Pegasus guards carrying the carriage. "We should have what we're looking for in this location, Silvershield. Stay with the other guards once we land." "Yes, ma'am," Silvershield replied with a salute. "And Trixie, you'll be coming with me." "Oh, of course, Your Highness," Trixie replied with a smug grin. Luna and the others landed just outside the little treehouse, which Rainbow Dash had already gone inside of. Already they could hear the sound of the talking inside, and Luna could almost recognize one of them to be Twilight's. Sure enough, only moments after landing, the door of the treehouse swung open, and Twilight Sparkle, with a few of her friends, Rainbow Dash included, rushed out to see her. "Princess Luna!" Twilight exclaimed. "I'm so glad you're here! We could really use your help." "I take it you're already aware of the situation with the princess?" Luna asked as Twilight came to a stop before her. "Yes, but we don't know why she's acting like this. At first I found it sort of hard to believe, but after seeing what she did to my friends, I just..." It seemed as Twilight was about to break into tears. A sudden voice called out in a rather surprised yet descending tone. "Twilight Sparkle?" Trixie spat out loudly as she stood guffawing next to the carriage, staring straight into the mare standing in front of Luna. "You are the princess's protege?" "Trixie?" Twilight exclaimed in almost as much surprise as Trixie. "What are you doing here with Princess Luna?" The two stood there, staring at each other in a sort of dumbfounded amazement for nearly a minute as Twilight's friends watched from the sides. Just as surprised as Twilight was. After a short bit, Luna eventually stepped in and broke the silence. You two girls know each other?" "Know each other?" Trixie spat. "This troublesome mare is the reason I lost my home." "Hey!" Twilight yelled back. "It's not my fault an Ursa Minor came to Ponyville. Besides, it was your boasting that made those two young colts go and seek one out. It's not Trixie's problem that you pony villains can't keep yourself out of harm's way. Trixie was only doing what she did best, until you came and ruined it. Well, maybe if you weren't such a snotty brat, then we wouldn't have even... Girls!" Luna yelled out in a commanding tone, silencing the two bickering mares. "We do not have time for this nonsense. We need both of you to help solve this crisis. The very fate of Equestria may be at stake." Twilight and Trixie exchanged looks again, neither of them at all happy with the conditions they are now being forced into. However, after a few more moments, they realized that they had to do what they had to do, whether they liked it or not. "Fine," Trixie said first. "Trixie will do her best to help solve the crisis, as long as Twilight here can somehow manage to do her part well enough." "Oh, don't you worry about me," Twilight replied, glaring over at Trixie. "I can handle my magic just fine. And don't over-exaggerate my abilities like some ponies do." "Girls," Luna said, the aggravation clear in her voice, "you both are of equal importance if we are to succeed here tonight, so you need to work together without fighting." "Well, what exactly do we need to do?" Twilight asked. "I can explain that," Silvershield said as he stepped forward from beside Trixie. "As you all know, Princess Celestia is not acting how she usually does. This is due to a certain part of her, sort of a separate personality in her mind that was once locked away and now released and overtaking her. She is still the Princess Celestia we all know and love, only with her mind distorted, distraught, and perverted. The only way to get her back to her normal self is to seal the part of her being back to the deepest parts of her mind with a magical spell, so that it can never again resurface to see the light of day." "Which is why Trixie is here with us," Luna added. "I may be almost the second most powerful force in all of Equestria, but my magical abilities are not familiar with the types of skills required for the magical spell needed to seal away the part of Celestia's being back into her mind. Trixie, however, is familiar with these magics, and was the only one in the immediate location that we could find at this time of night. She is, at least for casting of the spell, our only hope." At this point, Twilight didn't even need to look at Trixie to feel her heavy grin pointed straight at her. Her stomach started to churn, but before she got too lost in her thoughts, a question popped into her mind. "But wait," Twilight said, speaking up. "Where exactly do I come in for all this? And what exactly needs to happen in order to get the spell cast on Celestia? I'm sure you're already aware that the princess is more interested in you specifically, Twilight." "Yeah, sort of, but what does that have to do with this?" "How do I put this?" Luna said quietly, lowering her head temporarily to think to herself. We need Celestia to do what she did to your friends. To you. What? Twilight gasped, her face starting to pale. Even Trixie was caught a bit off guard by what Luna said. There's no other way, Silvershield shouted. The princess in her normal state is far too powerful for the mind-altering spell to work on her. In order to get her back into a weak enough state, she has to wear herself out to the point of exhaustion, to where both her mind and body are at its weakest. Only then will the spell have a chance of working. No. Twilight half cried out as she fidgeted her hooves on the ground. Celestia is my teacher, my mentor. I can't let her to be like that with, I never even thought of her and me. Oh my. For a moment, Twilight was nearly about to faint when she felt another pony come up against her side. It was Pinkie Pie, her face now looking straight at hers with pleading eyes. On her other side, Rainbow Dash gave her a very similar pleading look, telling her that she has to do this. Not just for her, for Celestia, or her friends, but for all of Ponyville. Nay, for all of Equestria! Twilight lowered her head for a few moments and closed her eyes, her mind in deep thought as she played through the scenario of what needed to be done in her head, over and over. All right, she whispered softly after another minute. I guess I have no choice. I have to give myself up to Celestia. It will be all right, Luna said, coming up beside her and placing a wing around her and Pinkie Pie, who was still at her side. She won't hurt you physically. Just know that this will be an act to save all of Equestria. I know you can do it, Twilight. I know you can. Even with those words, Luna cursed at herself eternally. She couldn't let them know that at this point that it was all her fault, but she would have to go and tell them eventually. She figured after all this was done with, she would give her most sincere apology at first to Celestia, and then to Twilight, and hope she doesn't have to spend any more time on the moon.